Cubbies. All right, so this week we're going to talk about the future King David defeats Goliath. This week our verse is Psalm 56:11. In God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? Now, if you can't remember that whole thing, just remember the short part. In God I trust, I shall not be afraid. Be sure to tell your mom and dad that several times tonight, okay? So, Cubbies, what are some things that make you feel afraid? Maybe you're afraid of the dark, snakes, or spiders. Well, those are all things that people can be afraid of. But one time, God's people, the Israelites, they were afraid of a very big enemy. And they forgot that God is in charge. They forgot God's promise that if the Israelites obeyed him and trusted him, that he was going to take care of them and help them win against all their enemies. Now, remember we talked about young David last week? Well, he was going to help them remember to trust God. So, here is the true story of God's Word. Remember, don't forget, the stories in the Bible are always true. And you can always believe them. So one day, David's father Jesse said, David, take these 10 loaves of bread and these 10 cheeses and hurry up and visit your brothers in the army and find out how they're doing. I hope they're well. So early the next morning, David arrived at the army camp, and the Israelites were all lining up to meet their enemy. Oh, big scary enemy. So when David arrived, they were lining up, and the Israelites stood on one hill, and their enemy, Philistines, stood on the other. Now David left his pack of food with the guard. He ran to go see his brothers on the hill. And as David talked with his brothers, a loud, angry voice boomed, Israel, let's see how strong you are. Send a man to fight me. Now that giant voice came from a giant man. His name was Goliath. Now he was a Philistine, and the Philistines were the enemies of God and God's people. And Goliath stood over 9 feet tall. That's pretty tall. So as the Israelites saw Goliath, they ran away because they were terrified. And they forgot that God is in charge. And they forgot to trust that their mighty God and King would save them from their enemies. But David did not forget. No. Who does this Philistine think he is? Does he really think he can beat the armies of the living God? I'll fight Goliath, and God will help me. So that's what David told the Israelites and King Saul. And you know what King Saul said? You're too young. You don't even know how to fight. Well, David answered him, I take care of my father's sheep. God helps me kill the bears and the lions that attack the sheep. And he's going to help me kill Goliath. So, Cubbies, what do you think happened? Do you think this little shepherd boy is going to be able to beat this big, giant warrior, Goliath? Well, you know what? David played his harp. He liked to write songs. And he listened to the words from one of his favorite songs. In God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? Now, if you remember, that's our verse this week. Now, David knew that God was stronger than any man, even a giant. So David also believed that God would fight for Israel just as he promised. So David went to a stream nearby, and he chose 5 smooth stones, and he put them in his pouch. And he held his sling in his hand, and you know what he did? He went to go meet Goliath. So when Goliath saw David, a little mad. He couldn't believe that the Israelites would send such a young, small boy to fight him. So Goliath said some mean words to David and made fun of him. But David, he said to Goliath, he knew that God was on his side and that he could win. So then David ran closer, and he reached into that pouch of his and he pulled out a stone and he put it in a sling and he whirled it around his head. And whoosh, he let that stone fly. You know what? It thumped Goliath right in the forehead. And the angry giant just fell face down into the dirt. Hooray! The Israelites hooted and hollered and shouted, and they chased the rest of the Philistines out, and they won the fight. And you know what else? They finally remembered that God is in charge. Now, many years later, David became king because he trusted in God. So, Cubbies, let's say our verse one more time together. Psalms 56:11. In God I trust, I shall not be afraid. For what can man do to me? All right, we'll see you next time.